Hello and welcome to a new episode of ZomCast 29. Today we will talk about an exciting new topic. It's about Python again because we are in the series of Python tutorials that I'm having on this YouTube channel, and I'm trying to cover as much as I can from Python. I know that a lot of you are fans of Python programming language. So today we're gonna talk about date and time. And by the way, before starting to talk about it, let's know that date and time is a very broad topic in Python programming language, and it's not very easy one. It has a lot of intricacies and complexities, and because Python has implemented a lot of different things for date and time, for time zone, different time zones, and manipulating the different representations of date and time, also supporting different time zones and having different stuff in this classes and modules. So it's not only one module. Python has a lot of different modules, several different modules for date and time. So I'm gonna make it super simple. I'm not going to show you all those complexities. I'm gonna show you how you can make use of these Python capabilities for date and time in an easy manner, so that you can get your work doing without getting yourself too complicated and getting yourself involved into complicated stuff. So what I'm gonna do, let's switch over to code, Visual Studio Code, and in Visual Studio Code I haven't switched yet. I'm just switching. This is Visual Studio Code. There we go. And here I'm gonna create a new file actually. And by the way, these are for the previous session. For the previous week we talked about logging, so I'm gonna close all these files. I don't know how I can close them all at once, but let's also close the terminal, and I'm gonna create a new file. And because we are gonna talk about date and time, let's call it date time tutorial. And I'm gonna increase the font size so that you can have a better increased view of the code that we are talking about, that we are writing. First of all, let's talk about the time representation. First, if you want to show some time, you will want to import time, okay? And then we also have date time. For now, we will work only with these two modules. So for time, I'm gonna show the time as a seconds from the epoch. You know, in computer science, we often show time, especially in low level, we show as seconds, in the unit of seconds. And the origin of those seconds start from the epoch, which is from 1970. And I don't exactly remember the exact time, but it's from a time on that year. And so if we want to know the current time in the sense of seconds from that time, we say time. This gives us seconds from that time. Okay, so print, I'm gonna type seconds, time in seconds. Okay, and this is gonna show it to us. But because this is a string and the right side is not a string, we will have problem showing that. Instead, I'm gonna move it inside the string with a template and show it this way. Make it f string, print f string, and now it will show us the time in seconds. So let's run this code, see how it works. You can see that time, we don't need this dollar sign, by the way. The current time, you can see in the terminal that, are you seeing that? Yeah, you should. The current time is this section, 1,615,558,293 seconds, and this number, a fraction of a second. And this fraction of the second actually shows how accurate your computer system that you are writing your code on is capable in terms of representing time. But we are mostly concerned about the seconds currently, and when you want to show time in seconds, you simply call time.time. And what if we want to only show the second part, the seconds part, and not the fraction of a second? We simply say time.time, and in order to convert it to seconds, I'm gonna call integer on it. I'm gonna cast it to integer. Let's run it, and you can see that we only have the second section and we don't have the fractions part. So this is about displaying time in seconds. So I'm gonna add a comment here, display time in seconds. So what if we want to create a time? How do we create a time? We can also create a time by creating a time. We can say current time, we use datetime module for that. Datetime and time, and we specify different components of time, like hour. For hour, for example, I enter 9:13 current time, 9 is the hour, and minute is 13. And I leave out the other part, only these two. I specify only these two, current time, and when I want to display it, current time, I can simply say strftime, in which I specify the format of the time that I want to specify. And the format, there are several different constants that you can specify here for different representation, like h, h for hour, and if I'm not mistaken, I for minute, and s for second. I'm not sure about that, but there are different variables. You can check out all of that in Python documentation. But the most straightforward one is using this one, ampersand, sorry, this is not ampersand, percentage x. So let's print it, print current time, I mean the time that we created, is this representation. Let's run it. There we go, 9:13. The time that we created is displayed there. So we covered two things, time in seconds and creating a time object using the datetime module. In fact, this time is different from this time because this time actually is a method, is a function that returns time in seconds, and it's from a different module. It's from the time module, but this time that I have here is a class that we construct from the datetime module, and it creates the time according to the parameters that we specify for it. So what else do I want to cover? So what if we want to access the current time of our system in string mode? I want to see the string representation of my system's time. What is it? In fact, there are two ways to see that, and I'm gonna show you both. Time, system time in string form, string representation. Print. I use the same string here inside the print statement so that the user sees that, and also a colon, and then print. I'm gonna show this time, C time. Note that first I use C time. It doesn't make a difference, C time or ask time. If I use C time, it will show the representation in a string form of the time. You see, my time is this. The time on the system on which I'm writing this code currently, that I'm having this live YouTube video, is this time, Friday, March 12, 9:17 and 24 seconds, by the way, 2021. And we have another method that has the same output from this module, time ask time. And if I run this, you will see that both of them give the same output. And I'm not sure what's the difference between C time and ask time. I usually use C time. Check the documentation for them to see what they are different in. So these are two ways to display time representation in a string. And what if we want to work with date? What if we want to see the date? I'm gonna show you first how to construct a date. So construct a date. I'm gonna create a date object. So date object, create a date object, and I'm gonna create it from the datetime date class. So datetime is the module, date is the class, and as you can see, it has several parameters: year, month, and day. So for year, I specify 1999, for example, and for month, I specify 3, and for day, I specify 12. So now I have the date and I want to represent it. I want to show it. I say print date object, date object, and print date object and C time. This will give the string representation of the time that we just constructed here, of the date that we constructed here. Let's run it. There we go. You see that the time that I created actually was Friday, March 12, 1999. And the time section is 0 because we didn't specify anything in terms of time. You see, it didn't have something for specifying time. It was only for date time. So constructing a date. And what if we want to change the time zone? This section is very annoying. I don't like messing around with time zone in Python because it's a little bit complicated, and you often need to subclass your own class from some system abstract class from Python's standard library for date and time called tzinfo, and then specifying and overriding methods for getting the difference between time zones and getting the daylight saving time settings and things like that. But there's an easier way, fortunately, that I can show you, and I'm gonna show you. So displaying time in different time zones. So first, use for this to work, import OS, and then I'm gonna set OS environ. For my Python code, I'm going to set some environment variables. Including time zone. So once I specify the time zone, first I specify US Eastern, for example. And this time zone has to follow the standard rules of specifying time zone, writing time zone. And you might find it over the internet what the standard is. It's usually the country name / and then that area. And for US Eastern, we specify the time zone like this. And then, this is not all we need to do. You need to call time tz set. And once you did it, you can get the current time on your system represented according to that time zone. So you are essentially changing your system's time zone to US Eastern if you are not already that. So print time current time in US Eastern, print time C time. Let's run it. There we go. The current time is 9/22/40 2021. And after changing to another time zone, change time zone to another city. For example, I'm gonna use Tokyo, Japan, Tokyo. So to Tokyo, Japan, Tokyo, in fact. I hope it's correct. I say OS environ TZ. The environment variable that we are setting is TZ. Make sure you're following that. And Japan, again, I am making a mistake. Tokyo after Japan, and then make sure you call time TZ set. We need to call TZ set to reset the time zone to the time zone that we just passed in TZ environment variable, and then display it. Print current time in Japan, Tokyo time zone. Print what was the time? Yeah, time. You can also use ask time. Let's run it. There we go, 14/24. The date didn't make a difference. The date is the same, March 12, but the time is now Tokyo time, 14/24. Nice. So I wish and I hope that this is easier than messing around with TZ info and passing some time zone information to time objects that you create or date objects that you create, because I believe this is easier. It might not be the best way, but it's easier and it gets the job done, you know. We talked about time, getting the time in seconds, getting the string representation of current system time. We talked about constructing a date, and also we talked about creating a time. So did we construct also date? I think we constructed a date. Yeah, we constructed date, but we didn't construct a time. Let me minimize the console, the terminal, and yeah, let's construct also time. It's not difficult. Construct time, and to construct the time, we simply say the time object. I name a time object, you can name it whatever you want. Date time, again, I'm using the datetime module. Datetime time, and because it's the time object is a time object, I need to specify some parameters like hour, minute, second, microsecond, and also, as I said, TZ info, but TZ info is a little bit complicated. I'm gonna skip it. Just hour. So what's the current hour for my system? It is 9:26. I can specify the parameters names like hour equals 9, but it's not necessary because I'm respecting the order of the parameters anyways. And this is the minutes. Minutes is 26, and for seconds I just specify for second minute, not minutes. And for second I specify 0. Time object print time object, cTime again. cTime is gonna give me, hopefully, no, ask time. It's not gonna give me that. I need to use strf time. strf time percentage x. Construct the date. Looks like I already showed you that. Oh my god. Yeah, I created the time before, current time, and now I'm doing that again. So if I do that, strf time, this time with a small letter x, just run it, syntax error. Okay, this is a syntax error here. The positional, when you specify the parameter names, they cannot be the initial ones. They cannot be the initial parameters unless you also specify parameters names for the next parameters as well. So I remove the parameters names. When you mix parameters, parameter format, parameter name format, and the positional format in a function, the positional ones must go before the parameter named, the named parameters, you know. So it should work now. Okay, here's time object, strf time. So x only represents the date time, but in order to see the time, I need to specify hour, and then, yeah, let's see. It only shows the hour, and now I'm gonna see the minute and then seconds. Let's see if it works. No, it doesn't work for IM and for S. Probably, I'm not sure. Yes, 9, no, M maybe. Yeah, the capital M is used, and then probably second is capital S. Nice. So to represent time, actually I'm not going to delete this. I was going to delete this example, but because it's a little bit different from our first example to construct it time, a time is it is. You see, in that we only used this format of displaying the time, percentage x, capital X, but for this, for the final one, I'm gonna leave it because I'm using other constant formats like hour, minute, and second. So you can use these flexibilities of the Python standard library for date and time representations. I hope that you like this tutorial about date and time representation in Python, and I hope that you find it useful in your applications and you find some use for it, and I'm sure you will. Alright, now switch back to our topic of the day. Today I was going to talk about the DevNation event that we had in the previous week. A few days ago, maybe 2 days ago, yeah, I think 2 days ago, it was on Thursday. It was on Wednesday, sorry. On Wednesday, there was an important event on held by Red Hat. It's called DevNation event, and in the DevNation event, Red Hat gives you an opportunity to experiment with a hands-on lab the different technologies for containerization and Kubernetes. And it even gives you your personalized cluster. So the important thing about that, and the good thing about this event, is that you have access to your own cluster. You get access to your own cluster for 7 days to experiment, to create projects, to work with OpenShift, Red Hat's Kubernetes platform, and also containerization, different projects, and also maybe hybrid cloud. One of the topics that the host was talking about, @ Ianaga, I think, I don't remember his name, was about hybrid cloud in that event. And I'm sure that many of you will find it interesting if you haven't already. and you can go check it out. There were about 200 people enrolled for that event. All of them got their own personalized clusters to experiment with Kubernetes and OpenShift for 7 days. So we are currently in that week. Inside that week, we have about 4 or 5 more days to finish our experiment, and then our access will be revoked to work with the OpenShift platform from Red Hat. But until that time, it's an amazing opportunity to work with Red Hat open source technologies, and especially containerization and Kubernetes and clusters. All right, that's it for ZomCast 29 this week. I hope that you liked it. If you liked it, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. Also follow me on Instagram at codezombie _ official, and also on Facebook codezombie.official, and on Telegram codezombie _ official. And did I mention everything? Yeah, Instagram, Telegram, and Facebook, and Twitter. Did I say Twitter? codezombie _ official again. So please be safe and happy coding. I see you in the next week, in the next episode.